that I wasn't much help, but I did not sit down, did I? I kept working. I tried. I did the best that I could do. Because here's the problem. I'm not going to be down. Because, again, I learned if I get my work done, and then I can go home, I can rest, I can sit up. When you are faced with a situation, I prayed that morning. I said, God, I really need some help today because I knew what I'd be facing. I knew the challenge. I tried to wear my boots and everything the right way and have everything done. I said, I would appreciate it. I said, because man can't do all this by himself. We need to work. We need the money. But however, God, if you choose to not protect me, you choose to not, make it where I can do my job, I got to do it anyway. So I'm going to do it anyway. My faith is not bound upon whether God does or doesn't do something. Either way, at our age, when you sit down, you tend to stay down. I'm not quitting. I've got goals. I have things. I am not going to let it. Yesterday, my wife and I, we went to Mountain Home, and again, walk around all day long. I had to learn how to walk yesterday. I literally had to learn how to walk, how to step. I'm getting better, where it don't hurt every third step. Why? Because that's something she wanted. I'm not going to let something like a foot stop me. I'm not going to let something, because I know I've prayed over it, I've trusted in God, but the other side, I'm keeping on going. Now, here we are. I don't even know where I was going with the whole thing. Don't even really matter.
You were going to Matthew 6, 31, 33.
Yeah, but I had something else. What? Natural, but this really matters. Oh my gosh. Let me get back to Matthew. Now, we go to Matthew 6. And now we find the story of Jesus. And Jesus is preaching. I didn't look at the source of the sermon. He said, and I'm going to go here. He says, and why do you worry about clothes? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all of his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? What shall we drink? How are we going to pay this bill? How are we going to do that? For the pagans run after all these things. In other words, the pagans run after answers of how all these things and how to solve these things. And your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. First thing is, we see a couple promises there. Not promises, but yet there's sort of promises. But there are realities. The last one tells you, when Jesus said this reality, that each day will have its own fullness of troubles and trials. He said, but don't worry. And it says that when we worry and we say all these things, how, when, what, all these things, what classification of people did Jesus say that we were? Pagans. We believe a pagan is someone who believed in a false God. A false God. A person who believes in prosperity, a person who believes in all this thing and this whole tithing thing and how much you should do and how much you should give. And the thing is that there's biblical standings of this, but then there is that also the pagan belief. You've created a false God. what I was going to tell you about was within an esoteric study. An esoteric study is, there's a scripture. It says, to him that overcometh, I will give to eat of the what? Huh? Somebody Google that. To him that overcometh, I will give to eat of the hidden manna. So he's talking about religious people, Christians. He's talking about people who are in church, the people who are seeking God. But he said something. He said, to him that overcometh. What is he talking about?
You gotta go through.
Within every study of an esoteric study, in other words, a hidden study, as you're trying to have a deeper understanding, there is an illustration that is mentioned several times in the Bible. And I'll spell it out for you so you'll know. And see if you recognize this word. Path. Path. Paths they are an illustration that it's like the crucifix, the swastika. All of these symbols have a far older meaning, and Christians adopt them, or evil adopt them, as in the case of the swastika. The swastika was not an evil symbol. It was a good luck sign. They claimed a false blessing. Paths are things that, understand it like this. Has anybody ever hunted? When you're hunting, what do you look for?
Tracks.
Well, where do you find your tracks? Paths. The Indians would use them to navigate. I remember a friend of mine, John White, he's passed now. They would walk to town every day. Lance, they lived, you know where you go out 286 East, there's a church out there where the volunteer fire department is? There's a church right there. He lived right there.
Oak Valley? Or right
No.
past Oak Valley right
Oak
there?
Valley is this way. 286 East is that way.
Liberty Fire Department down there?
Liberty.
Yeah, Liberty, yeah.
He would walk from there to town. And what they would do, they had paths through the fields. They had little things that they could crawl over the gates or go through them. They always had a place to pass through. But the thing is that one day they're walking and the guy pulled up in a buggy. He said, hey man, you need a ride? He said, no, we're in a hurry, we need to walk. Seriously, that's what he said. We're in a hurry, we'll walk. Because it took longer to get where he wanted to go because he had to go roads.
You can cut through.
So Christianity, any esoteric study, uses this illustration. Roads were easements. They were things that were kind of laid out, but the problem is they're not always laid out in the most efficient manner. Somebody would discover a shortcut. Originally they were called pathfinders. People who would search out and look for a path. They often used animal trails. They would use the faintest trail, and they know that that trail led somewhere. Once you found that trail, you follow that trail till it leads you somewhere else. Then you identify your next trail, and you start following that trail. Eventually, you follow enough trails, you're going to end up somewhere. But until you find or establish a trail, you're wandering aimlessly. This is what I equate to spirituality. We're all wandering, and the Bible even talks about that. You're wandering aimlessly. You don't know where you're going to go. That's why oftentimes religion is so empty, because it doesn't really give you... Religion gives you false promises, false boundaries. I've always believed that there is a realness in this thing. And within the esoteric studies, there are people who have found paths. When you look at the life of Yeshua, Jesus, when you look at him, he took all of things and he condensed it down to one path. I am the way. The way, also known as I am the path. Follow my path. Follow the steps that I've laid down. He said that because he wanted you to follow his path. The thing is that we have to understand, so if their paths exist, Psalms is full of illustrations of paths. Full. It's a light unto my feet, a light unto my pathway. Full of it. But the other thing that's critical within an esoteric study is a thing. For you layman, it's called gate. Think about it. The gates of heaven. The gates of hell. Do you think that was used for a reason? That thing, gates. Gates are used all throughout every esoteric study, whether it be the Golden Dawn, whether it be Masonic rituals, whether it be the satanic rituals. They all use gates. Gates are an illustration that you have to pass through. There are 9 gates. There are only 9 gates. The 9th gate is the gate of death. Do your studies. You'll start understanding these things. Gates oftentimes reflect through, and sometimes you'll find that as you go through the gates, gates are by definition a death of self. It's like the 7 deadly sins. These 7 deadly sins, and you go start breaking them out, you'll find that there is a gateway that is labeled with each of these things. So in other words, as an example, if you're a great person, everybody loves you being around you until it comes to money. You ever been around a person who's a great person to be around, but don't get involved with money? Because the money is their gateway. They're greedy. So the problem is they're a good person, AJ, but until they get to the money part, their evolution stops. Some people can be great people to hang around. I have never been privy of this feeling because I always would get, you say, yeah, I'm going to bring a friend along with me. It's okay, yeah, great. A friend along with me means that she's going to be ugly. And the girl you're talking to is trying to get you hooked up with her. Because she's really not interested in you. But you're interested in her, and all of a sudden she's going to bring your friend up, and you're like, oh. The thing is that vanity, you meet people, and they seem like great people until the vanity line comes in. Some men, some women always have to be the pretty one in the conversation, don't they? Some people have to be the smart people. They have to be the center of the conversation. So in other words, their development, they have all these attributes of these things until it comes to the gateway of them sacrificing the thing that they hold the dearest. That's why the 9th gate is the gate of death. Lay down your life and follow me. Die to yourself. He's talking about passing through the gateway of death. In other words, of dying to yourself. Because until you pass through that gateway, David, until you die for yourself, the death of self is often... God, I'm such a good artist.
See that.
Looks like a key backwards.
That's a key. That's really a skeleton key. So shut up. Now you see it.
Yeah.
It's a skeleton key. That's a skeleton head, in case you want to know. That's Bob. But the thing is that keys, the Bible, again, he says, I give you the keys to what?